Good evening. My name is Mohammad Nawaz. I welcome you to the hashtag Disruptive Education Movement by GETI, that is Global Education Training Institution, headed by Dr. Sunita Gandhi. Today we have very interesting topic, and the name of this topic is failure. So we have come across so many topics before, but this is very interesting seems to me. So for this topic, we have invited Ms. Geentanjali Ghosh, School Counselor, Sehwag International School, Jhanjhar, Haryana. So, ma'am, over to you. Please enlighten us with what failure is all about. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. Failure is something that everybody has a version to of their own. And I think failure is something that we all need to figure out on our own ends first before we can move ahead with anything else. And as we move forward, I would want everybody to sit down with a piece of paper and a pen and take about 2 minutes to think about what failure means to you. Because we all know the theory of failure, we all know what it means, what it really is by definition. But so many times it's only theory. Whenever we are functioning at a completely different psychological, emotional, and a personal level. And for each one of us, it's so different. So before I move ahead, I want everybody to take about a minute or so to think about what failure means to you, what failure is to you, and what you have probably for the past so many years of your life as probably a student or a professional, you have understood of failure. I will give you a minute. Please take your time. And then I will move further. As we move ahead, and as I've given you a minute to think about what failure is, I need you to also focus on what the dictionary has to say about failure. Instinctively, the dictionary, which is the Oxford Dictionary, it defines failure as lack, a meaning that this, and the third meaning the dictionary gives is a situation in which something properly. And
Hi, there could be some internet problem, and I see there is some technical issues, and Ms. Geentanjali Ghosh got disconnected. We'll just wait, maybe she's there online, and we'll be able to continue. So the topic today we were discussing was about failure, and ma'am asked us to write something about failure. So what I have written in my own is something which I attempted and failed to accomplish is what failure mean, I believe. So let's have this word with Ms. Gitanjali Ghosh. Let's see how she responds to it. Meanwhile, I would also like to talk about GETI, that is Global Education Training Institution. And yeah, I see ma'am have joined us.
hello. I'm sorry I
Okay,
got
ma'am, welcome back.
disconnected because of a technical issue. Thank you. Okay. So as I was saying, the dictionary has 4 meanings attached to the word failure. And the 4 meanings that I just probably read to myself, Could you hear the four meanings? Yes.
No, ma'am, we could not hear that. And you asked us to write what failure means to you. So I've written something called something which I attempted and failed to accomplish.
Lovely. Great. Thank you for sharing, Nawaz. Um, I want to move ahead after I discuss what the dictionary has to say about failure. The dictionary has four meanings for failure. The first one it says is lack of success. The second one it says an unsuccessful person or thing. The third one it says is a situation in which something stops working properly, and an instance of not doing something that is expected. Now, as Nawaz just mentioned, every one of us has a version of what failure means to us. And it is extremely important for each one of us to think about failure in its own capacity and what it really means to us. Not every one of us is going to be able to go through a decade or 2 decades of psychological studies that have always dealt with failure, the concept of failure, and its psychological effects on mankind. And that is why I want to start with the core concept of you, me, and every other person who wants to do anything productive in life. Now, I hope you've written the meaning of failure that you understand for yourself. The next thing I want you to write under that is a realization, and that realization is going to be written in a statement. And that statement should go like this: I will fail often, and that's okay. I repeat, I will fail often, and that's okay. So first thing, technically, I want to demonstrate here. If you have a piece of paper with you, I hope you have written the meaning here. So technically, you should have failure and its meaning. If you can read this, see, yes. So you can see I've written you should technically have the meaning of it, what it means to you. So I'm going to write this here. So here's failure, and under that I write meaning. And then I want to change color, of course, because it's a completely different tangent that I'm going to. So I'm going to then further make a kind of a moon under this, and I'm going to write, I will fail. Under that, I want to write often, but that's okay. Take a good look at this. It should work as a chart, as a flow chart, as a process flow, whatever name you want to give this. It should work as your blueprint to sort failure in your life. So we first start with the word failure, its meaning in your words. And then with a slight differentiation here drawn with whatever you want to draw, I want you to write this affirmation that I will fail often, but that's okay. Moving forward, I want to talk about what happens when we fail. I will pause here for a minute, and I will want you to again think for yourself what happens normally when you fail. Now that we know for ourselves what failure is, we also have written for ourselves on this small chart that I will fail often, but that's okay. So I want you to now think about what happens each time you fail. We fail 1,000 times. In a day, we may be failing 10 times, 15 times at something which is minuscule or at something which is huge. It could be a project, it could be an argument, it could be our jobs, it could be at trying a new recipe, it could be trying a new relationship, it could also be something as small as trying to meet your cleanliness target. The lockdown period has been especially trying for every one of us. Who would have thought that the whole world would come to a standstill and that each one of us all over the world would be locked up in our own homes, and with the cleanest of air post 4 months of lockdown, we still have to wander around with masks on our faces? Do you think this has been a failure for mankind? I know we're all blaming China. I also understand where it cropped up from. Some say it's a biological war. Some want to term it as a pandemic which just started out of nowhere. Instead of blaming circumstances, failure is only going to be sorted if we can sort our thoughts. You might want to write this down. You will only be able to sort failure if you can sort your thoughts. We've already agreed that you will fail. I fail. Everybody fails. It's perfectly normal. Even Bill Gates failed. We all know uh, probably Usain Bolt failed so many times before he could actually be called the fastest man on earth. So every one of us fails. It's a reality we have to learn to live with. The only problem is we are constantly talking about success. We're constantly worried about what we will do with our successes, but we're not looking at the other half of that coin, which is failure. And that is exactly where the problem lies. We all have to have a very realistic approach towards life. No amount of emotional atyachar is going to help you. No amount of blaming the world is going to help you unless you, I, and everybody else in this world has a realistic approach towards life. And where life prepares us to succeed, life also puts us up to some amount of failure, which is perfectly normal. And that is where the problem arrives. Because we're constantly only focusing on one half of our life, which is the so-called successful life, a good job, a good package, a good house, good clothes, good hairstyle. But what about all the other times when we are not so good? We are not being recognized as good. We are unable to prove our worth. There will be times such as those. And what will we do then? What will we do with failure? And that is what I want to talk about today. And that is why I asked you to take 2 minutes and think about what failure means to you. We all, within the education system propagated by the Indian government for so long, in 12 years of formal schooling, have been ingrained with the theory of failure and everything else pertaining to a successful life. The first question you ask a student or a grown-up about success or achieving success is, they will come up with the biggest words: hard work, discipline, But do we really know what hard work and discipline really is? Are we always working hard? Are we always disciplined? No matter what we do, there's always going to be us at the center of whatever we are doing. And unless we figure it out for ourselves, no amount of psychological help, no amount of theories, no amount of PPTs, and no amount of webinars are going to help you reach your goals. And as you reach your goals, or at least endeavor to reach your goals, you have to realize failure is the other aspect of success. And it is always going to be a part of this journey. Are we willing to accept that? I doubt it. Because this is the crux of the problem. We refuse to have a realistic approach towards life. We refuse to realize that there's only so much we can do. And when we have done what we can do, and even after that, if we are unable to achieve the desired result, it is not failure. Let me give you an example. Let's say an 18-year-old has worked for 3 years to clear the UPSC exam for IAS. And so this person has worked for 3 years consistently, 12 to 15 hours a day. You all know how people prepare for the IAS exams. And they've worked consistently and done everything they could in their powers. And they've given their UPSC exam. And then the result is declared and they do not clear the paper. Of course, the world would term that as a failure. But looking at it realistically, is it really a failure? I want you to think about it. I want you to think about a situation where you failed. And I want you to realize, or actually spend 2 minutes thinking about what more could you have done to make that situation end differently. Because we never really fail unless we have not done everything that we could. So it's not a failure. It is definitely not a failure. Even if someone has worked for 4 years to clear that UPSC exam and that person has not been able to clear the UPSC exam, there may be factors beyond that person's comprehension at that particular time because of which that person ultimately received a result of failure. But if that person did everything within his powers, I don't think it's a failure. I don't think it's realistic to term it as a failure. We're constantly overburdened by this whole assessment of others. And that is what makes life miserable. लोग क्या कहेंगे? 6 साल से तैयारी कर रहा हूँ, नहीं होगा तो माँ बाप क्या कहेंगे? दुनिया क्या कहेगी? दिक्कत पास ना होना नहीं है, दिक्कत लोग क्या कहेंगे है। पर अगर आपने अपने दम में जितना कुछ था वो सब लगा दिया, उसके बावजूद अगर आप किसी चीज में असफल रहे तो आप अपने आप को असफल नहीं बोल सकते। अगर उस साल के पेपर में कुछ घपला था तो आप कैसे अपने आप को असफल करार कर सकते हैं? अगर आपके हाथों में जितनी ताकत थी वो अगर आपने किसी काम में लगा दी, उसके बाद आपको डिजायर्ड रिजल्ट नहीं मिला, तो आप उसको अपना फेलियर कैसे कह सकते हैं? स्थिति ऐसी हो गई, हम मान सकते हैं। Today, before I actually came online, I was asked by our host Nawaz if I had a presentation to share with all of you. I purposefully did not make a PPT. Every one of you who is watching me, probably has gone through hundreds of PPTs already. I have gone through hundreds of PPTs already. But unless we awaken ourselves from the inside, unless we understand what we want, where we are lacking, and what we need to do in order to strategize, in order to deal with life, may it be success, it may be failure, we will never be able to comprehend another person's perspective. And even if we do understand the other person's perspective, I may come here and share 50 slides on failure. It will be yet again another experience of yours where you will have done everything remotely. When I'm sharing a PPT, I have done the research. I remember the content. What have you done? You're just sitting and listening. Again, just what you've been trained for the all those 12 years of or 15 years of formal education. स्कूल में क्या बोला जाता है? चुपचाप बैठो, जो बोला जा रहा है सुनो. कॉलेज में क्या बोला जाता है? कॉलेज में बोला नहीं जाता. आप आए जाएं जो मर्जी करें. आप अपने सामान के खुद जिम्मेदार हैं. अपने दिमाग के भी खुद जिम्मेदार हैं. करें तो ठीक, नहीं करें तो ठीक. कॉलेज में एग्जाम्स होंगे, उसमें आपका रिजल्ट आ जाएगा. So this is what we have to understand. When we are moving towards improving ourselves, we have to understand who we are. You have to understand what you are as a person, what you understand as principles, what is important to you emotionally, what is important to you intellectually. When you understand all these aspects about yourself, then only you will be able to bring about positive change in yourself. And only then will you be able to make positive change, baby steps towards improvement. That is why I physically asked you to start writing. Everything has become so technologically dependent that we are not even using our hands. And when we are not using our hands, of course, we're using our hands to type onto a laptop or a PC, but it's still different when you're writing with your hand. When you're writing, it's a much more personal experience. When we are typing, our minds go into this sleep mode, where sometimes we're like a plane, we're running on autopilot. That is why the age-old formula of writing what you want to remember or what you want to change within yourself is more effective. And that is why I want you to constantly write. It's one of the greatest tools to bring about change, not just in your thinking, but also in yourself. Coming back to failure. Like I said, the last one thing that I mentioned, which was of importance, is that we all fail, and it's perfectly normal. It may be the smallest of things, it may be the biggest of projects. It may be the smallest instance of a day where we are trying a new recipe and it did not turn out well. Maybe your family was supportive enough to not mention the bad dal or the bad puri that you made. But maybe you also have some people in your family who will go out of the way to make you realize that you were a complete disaster. So they will remind you of that failure. And then we go to something as big as doing something wrong when we are working, when we are on the job, because there's so much competition. Everyone is out there to prove their mettle. We all understand the pressures that every one of us has to go through when we are in a professional setting. But again, what is failure to you is going to help you understand your setbacks. It is going to help you to gain ground when you feel everything is lost. It is going to help you understand what needs to be done next. And that is why, first, everybody fails. Not once, not twice, but many times. What we do have to learn is how to fail well. Thank you, Gurpreet ji. How to fail well, how to move ahead has to be our agenda. And that again is no formula. It's not the calculate distance for this much speed and this much time. No, there is no formula. You have to come up with your formulas. I hope I will be able to justify the amount of time you are spending today listening to me, because all that I will share today is my own learning, my own perspective on failure, and what I have understood after observing people in different roles, in different situations, and what they've done with their failures. And that is what I'm going to share with you today. I could have come here again and shared data from different psychological studies, but let's admit it, we have to understand what really is wrong with each one of us ourselves, and that only you can do it. So, like I said, one of the biggest fears of failing is लोग क्या कहेंगे, मम्मी पापा क्या कहेंगे, और भी बड़ी जो हस्ती होती है परिवारों में, वो रिश्तेदार क्या कहेंगे। हम सबको पता है जब वो बोर्ड एग्जाम के दिन होते थे रिजल्ट आने का टाइम होता था और फोन बजता था, और जिसने एग्जाम दिया होता था उनकी सांस कैसे अटकती थी। वो चाचा का फोन है, वो फिर पूछेंगे रिजल्ट आया कि नहीं आया। अरे वो दादी का फोन होगा, वो जरूर पूछेंगे कि इसका रिजल्ट आया कि नहीं आया। रिजल्ट आना है जब आना है, उससे पहले 2 महीने में लोगों ने जितना कुछ बता के पूछ के जो हाइप क्रिएट कर दिया, उतने में हमारी सांस अटक रही है। जैसे जैसे हमारे दिन आते जा रहे हैं रिजल्ट डिक्लेरेशन के पास, तब तक हमारी रोटी उतरनी मुश्किल हो गई। ट्रू नो? So I will now request all of you to spend each day trying to work out a way of dealing with failure in a positive way. First off, you need to stop worrying about what others say, or what others will say, or what they will think of you. Because it's interesting that half the time people only are looking to talk about bad things. So आप कितना ही अच्छा या बुरा कर लें, कुछ वक्त के बाद वो बात दब जाती है, चाहे वो रिश्तेदार हो, चाहे वो आपकी कॉलोनी हो, चाहे वो समाज हो. Unless it is sensational enough to hold on to a failure, everybody forgets it over a period of time. It is extremely important for each one of us to understand that वो हिंदी में कहावत है ना, इस रात की भी सुबह होगी और इस सुबह की भी रात होगी. So this is the other aspect I want you to remember, that failure, just like success, is temporary. Please write it down. Failure and success both are temporary. It may seem that success lasts longer, or for some people who are very very pessimistic, जिनको बहुत डर लगता है या उन्होंने ज्यादातर सिर्फ फेलियर का ही सामना करा है, उनको ऐसे लगता होगा हमारी फेलियर तो जाती ही नहीं. Please believe me, every situation is temporary. If you are on top of the ladder today, that also is temporary. If you are at the bottom of the ladder today, even that is temporary. Remember that. अरे हम सभी temporary हैं. Every one of us has some amount of years on this earth. We must make the best of it. Nothing is permanent. So failure also is not permanent. It is a situation, एक स्थिति है, एक वक्त है, वो बीत जाएगा. आज आपके साथ कुछ ऐसा हुआ है, कुछ समय के बाद वो भी नॉर्मल हो जाएगा. आज आपके साथ कुछ अच्छा हुआ है, वो भी कुछ समय के बाद नॉर्मल हो जाएगा। हमें इस चीज को याद रखना पड़ेगा, क्योंकि जब हम फेलियर के बिल्कुल सेंटर में होते हैं ना, वो एक बवंडर सा होता है, जैसे बवंडर के बिल्कुल सेंटर में हम बैठे हैं, और इसलिए हमको उस वक्त लग रहा है कि हे भगवान, मेरी तो जिंदगी बर्बाद हो गई, ये एग्जाम फेल हो गए, जिंदगी बर्बाद हो गई। माँ बाप की सुननी पड़ेगी, परिवार वालों की सुननी पड़ेगी, रिश्तेदारों की सुननी पड़ेगी, समाज तो वैसे ही थू करके हमारी जान ले लेगा। डजंट मैटर। व्हेन यू हैव टू अचीव समथिंग इन लाइफ, थोड़ा जिगरा भी रखिए। 2 चीजें जीतेंगे, 3 चीजें हारे भी गए। हर रोज काम ऐसे कीजिए ताकि आपके जिगर में और ताकत आए, और हार कर ही ताकत आती है। जितना हम हारेंगे उतनी हम में, बोलते हैं ना, मनोबल की शक्ति बढ़ेगी, हमारा अस्तित्व और बढ़ेगा। सिर्फ जीतने की आदत है तो छोटी सी भी हार हजम नहीं होगी। इसीलिए बहुत जरूरी है हमारे लिए हार का सामना करना, और वो हार किसी की छोटी सी बात पर ना भी हो सकती है। किसी से हमने कुछ छोटा सा काम कह दिया, उन्होंने मना कर दिया, हम तो इरिटेट हो गए, हमको गुस्सा चढ़ गया। व्हाट इज रोड रेज? आप सब रोड पर आते जाते रहते होंगे अपने अपनी जगहों पे। व्हाट इज रोड रेज? किसकी क्या साइकोलॉजिकल स्टेट ऑफ माइंड है हमको नहीं पता। और ये मैं क्यों बोल रही हूँ आपको? जब आप गाड़ी चला रहे हैं, आप अपनी स्कूटी चला रहे हैं, आप अपनी बाइक चला रहे हैं, आप उसी पर तो नियंत्रण रख सकते हैं ना जो आपके पास है। आपकी स्कूटी है, आपकी बाइक है, आपकी गाड़ी है। आप अपने वाहन पर नियंत्रण बरत सकते हैं, दूसरे के वाहन पर कैसे बरतेंगे बताइए? फेलियर भी ऐसे ही है। जिंदगी में आपके मुट्ठी में उतना ही है जितना आप कर सकते हैं। उस मुट्ठी के बाहर जितना है आपके नियंत्रण में नहीं। और अगर उस पर आप दुखी हो रहे हैं, उस पर आप विचलित हो रहे हैं, तो वो तो बेवकूफी है। सरकारी नौकरी चाहिए दुनिया को। सरकारी नौकरी हम सबको पता है कैसे मिलती है, काबिलियत पर मिलती है क्या? हम सबको पता है सरकारी नौकरियां कैसे मिलती हैं। जिसके पास ज्यादा पेटी है उसको जरूर मिल जाएगी, काबिलियत हो या ना हो उस पर निर्भर नहीं करती ये बात। तो हमारे हाथ में क्या है? काबिलियत। हाँ, अगर पेटियां भी हैं तो बहुत अच्छी बात है। काबिलियत के साथ अगर आप 3 पेटी भी पहुंचा सकते हैं सरकारी दफ्तर में, शायद। आजकल तो बोला जा रहा है मोदी सरकार ने भ्रष्टाचार कम कर दिया है। फिर भी अगर आप में काबिलियत है तो वो आपकी है। पेटी भी है, चलो वो भी आपकी है। उसके बाद भी अगर सरकारी अफसर आपकी नहीं सुन रहा है, नहीं मान रहा है, तो फिर क्या कर लेगा बताइए? वो भी तो एक फेलियर है। सरकार ने बोल दिया एनईईटी का पेपर देना है, तो देना है। अब आप जाइए, अपील कीजिए सुप्रीम कोर्ट में, सुप्रीम कोर्ट रूलिंग देगी, कब देगी, कैसे देगी, वो उनकी jurisdiction है। they will take their time, or whatever the process is, they will follow that. Is that in your hands? So what is the point of taking that as your failure? We can only control certain things which are directly related to us. And if we can control that, that in itself is a mark of success. If after that we end up with an undesirable result, I don't think we are being sensible in terming ourselves a failure. I'm going to now draw uh, an equation. I'm sure everybody's studied basic science, and this happens to be my own equation, which I came up with when I was pretty young. Don't remember how young, but I came up with this understanding when I was at a point in life which was pretty low. Let's just say I was very sad and confused, and I felt everything was just not going the way I wanted it to go. And that is the time when one thing after the other led me to a stage where I was losing everything on an emotional and a psychological level, and I was feeling that nothing is turning to be right. And that is the time when I suddenly had this realization that there are so many things which are out of our control. It may be the smallest of thing, it may be the biggest of thing. मैं बार बार ये बात इसीलिए कह रही हूँ क्योंकि ये रियलाइज करनी बहुत ज़रूरी है. हर रोज आप किसी के साथ बात कर रहे हैं, अगर उसमें आपको 10 बार ना सुनना पड़ रहा है, वो भी हमारे लिए फेलियर हो जाता है. दिन में अगर हम किसी से 10 बार ना सुनेंगे, शाम तक हमारा मूड की धज्जियां उड़ चुकी हैं ना. बच्चे हैं आप, तो अगर आपकी मम्मी ने 10 बार बोल दिया कि भाई ये पूड़ी नहीं खानी है, ये आइसक्रीम नहीं खानी है, ये नहीं करना है, वो नहीं करना है, तो बच्चे का क्या हो जाता है? Yes, somebody says that best lessons are taught by failure. When we fail in something somewhere, we learn the experience to choose the better way. Absolutely. Only we forget this over a period of time. And every time we fail, I feel, and I have noticed, each time we fail, it takes away something from us. It may be a little bit of peace, it may be a little bit of courage, it may be a little bit of strength, but it does take away something from us. Now, what do we do to get that back? We need to work, we need to strategize. Everything requires a strategy. Now, I don't want to make your life boring because every move of yours should be a strategy, but I do want you to spend some time on thinking what you normally do when you have to face failure. Like I said, we all know theory. We all know failures are the stepping stones to success. We all know if we do not fail, we will never learn anything. पर सच में जब हमारे साथ ऐसा होता है तो क्या हमें ये याद रहता है? उस वक्त क्या होता है? उस वक्त we want to just break everything, or maybe run away to a place where no one sees us or knows us, or maybe just yell at the top of our voices. These are our coping skills. So I'm going to share an equation with you, coming back to what I just said. The easiest way to explain this would be that everything, let me explain it with my hands first. I feel everything has 100% to it. I hope you can see me clearly. Everything has 100% to it. This is 150%, this is the other 50%. Now I would like to take, because I'm right-handed, so I would like to take my right hand as my 50%. Now within this 50%, I can control everything. Example, I want to learn driving. मेरे अंदर नियत है सीखने की. इकोनॉमिकली मेरे पास पैसे इतने हैं कि मैं एक ड्राइविंग स्कूल ज्वाइन कर लूँ. अगर मैं ड्राइविंग स्कूल नहीं ज्वाइन कर लूँ तो मैं अपने भैया, पापा, मम्मी, जिसको भी ड्राइविंग आता है, उनके पीछे पड़ के मैं उनको बोलूँ भैया रोज मेरे को 1 घंटा आपको ड्राइविंग सिखाने का है, और मतलब ही नहीं बनता कि मैं ना सीखूं. So this is the 50% that I can control. Now the other 50%. The other 50% is, we will start from the first example only. कोई ड्राइविंग स्कूल मेरे आसपास है नहीं. जो ड्राइविंग स्कूल है वो बहुत दूर है. What is the other thing I said? कि परिवार में हम किसी के पीछे पड़ जाएं या किसी को बोलें कि भैया नहीं आपको तो मुझे सिखाना ही सिखाना है. मोस्टली जो लोग छोटे होते हैं वो अपने बड़े लोगों को कहते हैं कि भाई आप हमको सिखा दीजिए, बड़े भैया या दीदी जिसको भी ड्राइविंग आती है, या फिर पापा को बोलते हैं कि पापा आप सिखाइए. तो घर में कोई सपोर्ट नहीं मिल रहा. ये वो 50% है उस 100 का, जहां पर मेरा कोई कंट्रोल नहीं है. मैंने बहुत बार बोला, वो मान नहीं रहे. So I fail. I break apart and I fail. Thank you. I break apart and I fail. I consider myself. Thank you very much. I fail and I suddenly realize that I can't learn driving. I tried for 2 months to look for a driving school. I couldn't find one. I tried running after my family members. None of them agreed. भैया को ट्यूशन पे जाना है, पापा को टाइम नहीं है, गाड़ी अवेलेबल नहीं है. So what do? I end up in a situation where I break apart. I am disappointed. I consider myself a failure. Coming back to a bigger problem, I want to become a bank PO. So this half मैं तैयारी कर सकती हूँ. मेरे पास जो रिसोर्सेज हैं, सैम्पल पेपर्स हैं, बुक्स हैं, जो लोग ऑलरेडी बैंक्स में काम कर रहे हैं उनसे मैं मिल सकती हूँ, उनसे मैं नॉलेज गैदर कर सकती हूँ किस तरह का पेपर आता है, क्या होता है क्या नहीं होता, मैं पूरी तैयारी करती हूँ. ओके, दिस 50% इज द सिलेक्शन प्रोसीजर. भाई कैसे सिलेक्शन होगा, कौन लेगा, कौन क्या करेगा, मुझे नहीं पता, मेरे नियंत्रण में नहीं है ये. आई कैन नॉट कंट्रोल इट. सो आई of this 100%, I can only control the 50 that I have control over. I prepare for 6 months. I give my bank PO exam or whatever other exam I have to give, and I pass. Then I reach another stage where I probably have to give an interview or whatever it is. Sometimes another procedure is added. So I do all of that. And then suddenly, when the result comes, I am not selected. So can I call myself a failure? Because whatever I could do, I did. Here, this 50% I have no control over. There may be corruption. There may have been a technical error due to which maybe my paper was not accepted or whatever it was. किसी ने रिश्वत खा ली, 2 और लोगों को भर्ती करना था तो मेरा नीचे जितना भी नाम था मेरा वो वहां से काट दिया. I cannot control this. So I always have control over 50% of the 100% of every situation. If my 50% is complete, I don't think you should term yourself as a failure. You did all you could. So first understand what failure is for you. When we do everything we can, when we have done everything we could, it is not a failure. On paper, it may show as failure, but it really isn't a failure. You always have another year. You always have another job. You always have another step that you can take towards reaching your goals. I will draw this on a piece of paper so that you understand what I meant. First, let me draw.
Hi. There should be some problem again. The call, maybe due to internet connection, ma'am videos got disconnected. However, the chair ma'am was talking about failures, and it was very excellent talk so far what we had. And with one beautiful note that madam has asked us to write, it was I will fail often, and that's okay. So let me just, yep, I got the madam back on screen. Let me add to the screen now.
I'm sorry, I got disconnected a second time. Don't know what's happening with the connection.
It's fun.
Okay, so here's what I've written for you to look at. Everything has 100% to it. 50 is mine to manage, and the other 50 is not mine to manage. So whatever I can do within this 50, this half. And if I have done everything within my control, it's not a failure, trust me. It just isn't a failure. No matter who says what to you, it's not a failure. If you did everything within your powers, within your capacity, within your resources, it is not a failure. You cannot term it as a failure no matter what anybody says to you. I would like to take a short pause here. Would anybody want to share anything here? Ask me a question. Was whatever I have said easy to understand? Please share your inputs. They can't
Yes,
write
ma'am.
on the
Yes, ma'am.
chat or anything?
They can. If at all they're writing, we'll be getting it on our screen. However,
Okay.
as they
Yeah.
might have got some time, they'll do it because I was also
Okay.
making notes. And while you got disconnected, just I came to the screen and I was telling that beautiful quote that you've given us, that I will fail often, and that's okay. So it's a basic thing that we'll have to keep in mind. And like you said, ma'am, what I understood with this whole talk today, by understanding, by giving an example of road rage, you made us understand that we can control things which is under our capacity, right?
Yeah.
So that's good. Yeah, ma'am, it's very great to understand that part. And other thing, just now, like you said, everything will have 100% of it. And if you do everything possible, that will have the 50% impact of it, and that is what is success is, right, man? So rest 50% we don't know what the result is, but what we do 100% is in our efforts or in our capacity, whatever we have to do it, and that is 100% of what we have done.
Absolutely.
So yeah, man, that I could understand better, and I hope I'm sure that all our audience might have got the same message and they could have understand the same way that I did. I'm just trying to emphasize or rephrase it to make it very clear. So yes, ma'am. So far, we did not get any kind of comment from anyone, any of our audience, but there were so many messages saying that it was a great talk and it was nice to understand what failure is all about. Yeah, ma'am. Any closing comments from your end?
Um, I would just say that this brings us to the end of my talk. And I know it's not much, but I would want you to try it out. Like I said, everything only works when we're willing to try something out with a certain understanding of our own selves. So, my only request and suggestion to you would be spend more time with yourself, see what works for you. Every day, spend at least 10 minutes alone with yourself doing things that make you stronger. Gain experiences. Don't look at just things as possessions. Gaining experiences should be our agenda because as we move forward, experiences make us stronger, make us more sensible, make us realize the actual essence of life. So know yourself, spend time knowing yourself every day, do things that will make you happier, stronger, and no matter what anybody says, believe me, if you have done everything within your powers to achieve something and if it still didn't work, believe me, you will still sleep a good night's sleep and you shouldn't term it as a failure because it isn't. There always is a 50% that is not within your control. So move on, it will pass, and there will be better things coming your way. Thank you very much for your patience and thank you for listening. I hope I could justify you spending so much time listening to me.
No, ma'am, it was very wonderful, and it really gave me. I'm talking about my personal experience of listening all this. A new way of thinking what failure could be,
I'm
because
glad.
we just take it as whole. We just take it as whole as a failure. Okay, we failed, but however, now we have to bifurcate it. We have to understand what is the reason behind, and till what level we are responsible to it. So that's really
Absolutely.
great to understand. Yeah. Thank you for bringing that information to us. I really got the point there, and I really thank you so much for being a part of our show, man. And this was very special topic since the day I got to hear failure. I was just wondering what it could be, what the talk could be. So,
Thank you.
Miss Varsha Amritu, I guess,
Yes.
said that Vivekananda, Swami Vivekananda has said You're not failed after failing 100 times until you quit trying again. Wow, awesome.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So true.
So, yeah, ma'am, by this note, once again, I will quote that special words that you've given to us. I will fail often, and then that's okay. So,
Absolutely.
by this quote, I'll end this session, ma'am. Thank you for being
Thank
a
you
part of
very
this
much.
particular show.
Thank you.
And to our audience, please watch our shows. It is hashtag Disruptive Education Movement by Dr. Sunita Gandhi. So I urge our audience to please go through our website and go to this hashtag Disruptive Education Movement. And we have so many interesting talks like ma'am gave us today, Geentanjali Ghosh ma'am. And thank you so much for this show.
Thank you. Bye bye, and everybody take care. Thank you.